Okay, we're on page 34. So they're talking in the room together. Me too, Renee said. I think refusing was part of the test. If we'd cheated, they would have known it. And I doubt either one of us would be here. From his shirt pocket, Sticky took out a thin piece of cotton cloth and polished his spectacles with it. If you're right, it's a little creepy that they're tricking us like that. He put the glasses back on and blinked his big, nervous eyes. But I shouldn't complain. They were very nice to me to let me go to the third stage, even though I missed a few questions. Very generous of them. Wait a minute, Renee said. How could you possibly have missed any? Did you circle the wrong letters by accident? Sticky seemed embarrassed. He shuffled his feet as he spoke. Oh well, I suppose the questions were easy for you, but for me they were rather difficult. Time ran out before I could answer the last three, so I just had to circle some answers and hope I got lucky. I didn't, of course, but as I said, they were very forgiving. Renee couldn't believe what he was hearing. You mean you knew the answers to those questions? Sticky grew more dejected with Renee's every question. Tears brimmed in his eyes as he said, Well, yes. I suppose I do look rather stupid, don't I? I look like a person who doesn't know any answers ever. I understand that. Renee interrupted him. No, I didn't mean that. I meant I'm surprised that anybody knew the answers. One or two maybe, but certainly not all of them. Sticky brightened, smiling shyly, and straightened his back. Oh, well, yes, I suppose I do know a lot of things. That's why people started calling me Sticky, because everything I read sticks in my head. It's perfectly amazing, Renee said. You must read more than anybody I've ever met. But listen. Once you figured out the test was a puzzle, why didn't you solve it that way? It would have saved time. You could have finished it. A puzzle? You didn't notice that the answers were all right there in the test? I did notice that a lot of information was repeated, Sticky reflected, but I didn't really pay attention to it. I was concentrating too hard on getting the answers right. That question on colloidal suspensions really had me sweating. I can tell you, and as I said, when I'm anxious, I can get mixed up. After a pause, he sighed and added, I tend to get anxious a lot. Renee laughed. Well, you didn't know it was a puzzle, and I didn't know any of the answers, but we're both here now. We'd make a good team. You think so? Said Sticky. He grinned. Yes, I suppose we would. The boys waited there for some time, discussing their curiosities of the day. Sticky was more relaxed now, and soon the two of them grew comfortable together, joking and laughing like old friends. Sticky couldn't stop giggling about Rhonda Kazimbi's crazy get-up, and Renee smiled until his face hurt when Sticky told him more about hanging upside down in the storm drain. My shoes started to slip off in her hands, Sticky recounted, and for a second I thought she was going to take them and leave me down there under the grate. I panicked and started wriggling like crazy. I think it was all she could do to pull me back up without dropping me. Then Renee told Sticky about the pencil woman's sneakiness regarding the phone call to Miss Pernomo. Instead of laughing as Renee had expected, Sticky slipped back into his nervous behavior. He began polishing his spectacles again, even though he'd just done it minutes before. Oh yes, he said. I tried to call my parents too. Something happened, but in the end it was fine. She called them for me. Nothing to worry about. Renee nodded politely. He saw perfectly well that Sticky was trying to hide something. Maybe he hadn't thought of calling his parents and felt guilty about it now. But Renee decided not to press him on the matter. Sticky seemed uncomfortable with it as it was. So where do you live? He asked, to change the subject. This only made Sticky polish all the harder. Perhaps he simply disliked personal questions. Well, he began. He cleared his throat. Well, just then, the door flew wide open, and a girl raced into the room carrying a bucket. She was extremely quick. One moment she was bursting through the door, golden blonde hair flying out behind her like a horse's mane, and the next she was standing right beside them. Sticky leapt back in alarm. What's the matter? He cried. What's the matter with you? The girl replied calmly. Well, what are you running from? From? I wasn't running from anything. I was running to this room. Old Yellowsuit told me to come down here and wait with you two, so here I am. My name's Kate Weatherall. Sticky was breathing hard and casting glances at the door as if a lion might fly in next. So it fell to Renee to introduce them. I am Renee Muldron, and this is Sticky Washington, he said, shaking her hand and immediately regretting it. Her grip was so strong it was like getting his fingers caught in a drawer. Sticky noticed Renee's pained expression and quickly thrust his own hands into his pockets. Rubbing his tender knuckles, Renee went on. I think the question is, why were you running instead of walking? Why not? It's faster. Now, I'm here with you two boys instead of trudging down the empty hallway. It's much better, isn't it? You seem like nice fellows, so why do they call you Sticky? She touched Sticky's arm. You don't feel sticky? It's a long story, Sticky said, regaining his composure. Let's have it then, Kate said. So Sticky told her about his name, and then Kate revealed that she had always wanted a nickname herself. I've tried to get people to call me the Great Kate Weather Machine, she said, but nobody seems to go along with it. I don't suppose you boys would call me that, would you? It does seem a bit awkward for a nickname, Renee said mildly. It takes a long time to say. I suppose it does, Kate admitted, but not if you speak very quickly. Let us think about it, said Sticky. Kate nodded, agreeing. She seemed pleasant enough. She had very bright, watery blue eyes, a fair complexion, and rosy cheeks, and was unusually tall and broad-shouldered for a 12-year-old. She announced her age right away, for children consider their ages every bit as important as their names. In return, she learned that the boys were 11, but what Renee was most curious about was her bucket. It was a good metal, solid bucket, painted fire engine red. And as they were talking, Kate unfastened her belt, slipped it through the bucket handle, and fastened the belt again so the bucket hung from her hip. From the way she did this, it was obvious she'd done it 1,000 times. Renee was fascinated. Finally, he asked her what it was for. She gave him a quizzical look. What kind of person doesn't know what a bucket's for? It's for carrying things, silly. Yes, I know that, Renee said, but why do you have one with you? Most people don't carry buckets around for no particular reason. That's true, Kate reflected. I've often noticed that, but I can't understand why. I can't imagine not having a bucket. How else am I going to tote my things? What things? Asked Sticky, who, like Renee, was trying to get a sneak peek into the bucket's contents. I'll show you, Kate said. She began removing things from the bucket. First came a Swiss Army knife, a flashlight, a pen light, and a bottle of extra-strength glue, which Kate examined to make sure the lid was tightly closed. Then she produced a bag of marbles, a slingshot, a spool of clear fishing twine, one pencil and one eraser, a kaleidoscope, and a horseshoe magnet, which she yanked with some effort from the metal bucket. I've been through dozens of these, she said, holding the magnet up for them to admire. This is the strongest I've found. Finally, she showed them a length of slender nylon rope coiled around the bottom and sides of the bucket. That's a lot of stuff to carry, Sticky remarked. It's all useful, Kate said, putting her things away. Take this morning, for example. Some crazy-looking girl dropped her pencil down a storm drain out in the plaza. Renee and Sticky looked at each other. And if I didn't have my bucket with me, Kate continued, she'd have been up a creek without a paddle. A thoughtful expression came over her face. A paddle would have been great to have too. But no, I suppose it would be too big to haul around. Still, it would come in handy sometimes. Did you help Rhonda get her pencil back? Renee asked. Of course I did. Now wait a minute. How did you know her name? Finish your story, Renee said. We'll tell you later. So Kate told him how she had pried up the edge of the metal grate with a screwdriver on her Swiss Army knife. After dragging the grate aside, she tied a rope to a nearby branch and lowered herself into the drain, using her flashlight to find the pencil in the darkness. It had rolled down into a crack, she explained, about 10.5 inches deep. So I put a drop of glue on the end of some fishing twine. That's why it pays to have a pen light, too, so you can hold it in your mouth and point it when you need both hands for something like putting glue on twine. Anyway, I poked the twine down the crack until it reached the pencil, gave the glue a few seconds to dry, then pulled it right out. I could have done I could not have done any of that without my bucket. Now, could I have? Weren't you afraid? Sticky asked. He'd been terrified himself, and he didn't want to be the only one. Of what? Getting wet? It was perfectly dry down there. We haven't had rain for days. Something about Kate's story had caught Renee's attention. How did you know the crack was 10.5 inches? He said. I don't see a tape measure in your bucket. Oh, I can always tell distances and weights and that sort of thing, said Kate with a shrug. She glanced around. For example, just by looking at it, I can tell this room is 22 feet long and 16 feet wide. Sticky, irritated that Kate hadn't been frightened in the dark drain, was inclined to be skeptical. Are you sure? Of course I'm sure. Let's measure, said Renee, fetching the ruler from the pencil woman's desk. The room was 22 feet long and 16 feet wide. Impressed, Renee whistled. And Sticky said, not bad. Okay, back to your story, Renee said. Did Rhonda offer to help you cheat on the test? Kate's eyes narrowed suspiciously. You sure seem to know a lot about it. Were you spying on me somehow? If you were, then I guess you'd know I called her a loon. We weren't spying, but that's what I figured, Renee said. So I take it you solved the puzzle, unless, of course, you knew all the answers. Kate snorted. Who in the world could possibly know the answers to a test like that? Sticky did, said Renee. It was Kate's turn to be impressed. Not bad, she said, and Sticky ducked his head shyly. Now, what's this about a puzzle? All right, people, we will stop right there. You guys have class again at 11:15. Your advisory class. Okay? So 11:15, go to advisory class. Got it? Deuces, see ya.